All right, well, welcome to our April 7th class, which again I'm recording and posting on YouTube. And what I want to cover today is our graded homework assignment for this week. I'm going to ask you to do an as-is and a final valuation of SBUX, and also to follow the process that we just completed with Coca-Cola and to do it yourselves. So you can either use the Bloomberg terminals in the classroom or you can use the Bloomberg terminals in the lab downstairs to get data and put it into the model. And that's what I'm going to be covering today. How do we update the model with the SBUX data? Now, a couple things. On the Bloomberg terminals in the lab upstairs, you may have to reinstall the Excel plugin so that if you export data and it gives you a pound name and it doesn't export the data, then you're going to need to go to the start menu to the Excel tools and load the Excel plugin for Bloomberg, reinstall it because sometimes it gets wiped out, and then essentially quit Bloomberg, go back into Bloomberg, and then export the data again. And if you're in the lab downstairs, there should be a lab tech that could help you do this process. But what I want to cover here in the video is what do you need to do this SBUX assignment. So I'm going to take the Coke file that we did on video for the as-is valuation, which I will also post onto as a solution onto Canvas, and I'm going to rename it for SBUX, and I'm going to create a folder here called SBUX. Okay, so in terms of getting data from Bloomberg for SBUX, you're going to need several screenshots and you're going to need several Excel files from Bloomberg in order to help you deal with SBUX. So again, assuming you're logged into Bloomberg Professional, type in the company name or ticker symbol, in this case SBUX, US Equity, and you're going to need 3 screenshots to help you with the SBUX valuation. The first one is DES, which you can either type in DES or click on DES, because that's going to have the shares outstanding for SBUX. So to take a screenshot, up here, click on Export, Save Screen as File, and again, the convention I'll use is ticker symbol, so SBUX-DES, because we're going to need the shares outstanding, right? Second, we're going to need the WACC, weighted average cost of capital, because this is the cost of capital we're going to use in our valuation. So again, I will take a screenshot of the WACC screen, SBUX-WACC. And third, we're going to need the EEO, the earnings estimate overview. Make sure you switch to an annualized basis, because this is going to get us the forward sales and the forward operating profit on an annualized basis for the company. And again, save screen as file, SBUX-EEO. Right? So I've taken my 3 screenshots. Now what I need to do is I need to get the data, historical financial data for SBUX. So again, that's on the FA for financial analysis screen. Or again, if I'm at the main SBUX menu, I can click on FA for financial analysis under company analysis. And I'm going to need the data for the income statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement. Now, I've heard that the Bloomberg settings may differ by your account versus my account, and the way that Bloomberg is set up is very important. So before you export the data, just to make sure that it goes into the model correctly, click on Settings, and we want to make sure that there's a few settings that are set for the model to work correctly. First, we want to make sure that the filing status is most recent, The as reported is checked to standardized, which means we're using the standardized data by default, not the as reported data by default. 10 periods. Also, for data, we want to make sure that the estimates and the current data are checked, right, along with the percent columns for segment analysis, but not the common size. On display, we want to make sure that the display order is descending as opposed to ascending, because the model is assuming that the data is coming in a descending order. What that basically means is the newest year is on the left, the oldest year is on the right. If you have ascending, you have the newest years on the right, and the model is not expecting it to come that way. Okay? And again, in Excel reports, make sure that include reference items in report and start each section on a new page are checked. So again, in table format. So just making sure that you have the same settings that I do so that when you export the data and bring it into Excel, that there aren't any problems. So in this case, I want to first click on IS for income statement, then standardized, and then I'll go to output to Excel, and I'll start outputting my Excel data. Now again, make sure that you click yes when you see the security warning. And that you convert this to numbers. So select the worksheet, copy the worksheet, paste special, values the worksheet. You also want to get rid of these pound NAs. Okay, so again, Control F, find the pound N/A space N/A's and replace those with zeros. So I can file save as an Excel workbook, put this in my download folder. We'll call this SBUX-IS. Right? Next, I want to do the same thing with the balance sheet. So click on the balance sheet. Again, make sure that I'm on the standardized tab. Output that to Excel. Yes to the security warning. Let the data pre-populate. Again, if this says just pound name and nothing pre-populates, that means that the Excel plugin has to be reinstalled for Bloomberg on your terminal. Should be off the menu. Copy, paste special, values, so convert these to numbers. Search for all my pound N/A space N/A. Replace any of those with zeros. And then save this as an Excel workbook. So SBUX-BS. And then finally, I need my cash flow statement, CF. So output to Excel. Once the cash flow data loads, select the sheet, copy, paste special, values. Again, get rid of all my NAs. N/A space N/A. Replace all those with zeros. And then save this as an Excel workbook. SBUX-CF. Okay, so I've basically exported the income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow. I've taken 3 screenshots, DES for description to get the shares outstanding. I've taken a screenshot for WAC for the cost of capital, and I've taken a screenshot for the earnings estimate to update my data. I'm now ready to start updating my model. So one of the things I did is I took the Coke file, which was the Coke as is, and I saved it as SBUX. So now what I'm ready to do is to start updating my model. So I'll start out with the income statement data. Okay. So in this case, move all the SBUX data to this folder. Okay. And what I will then do is open up the income statement data, select the whole thing, copy it, right? And again, what I really need to make sure is I overwrite this kind of row for row. So easy way, select the whole sheet. Again, paste special values. I don't want to just copy paste, because if I copy paste, it'll make references to the other workbook. So I want to copy paste special values to just paste in the numbers. I want to do the same thing for the balance sheet. So I'm opening up, where was it? Opening up the balance sheet. Okay. Select the balance sheet, copy, bring into the model, paste special values, and finally the same thing with the cash flow statement. So open up the CF, copy, paste special values. Okay, so I've now updated the Coke model with the SBUX income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow. Save this. And now I'll go back to my assumptions. First, I want to make sure my last reported year, so if I go off the balance sheet, is 2013, that is the same as the last reported year here. Second, I need to update my WACC, because SBUX is going to have a different WACC than did Coca-Cola. So I'm going to go in here to my screenshot for WACC, which is 9.4%, and I'm going to update that to 9.4. I'll leave my CVG at 3%. If I had made it a different number, I'll reset it back to 3%. And my shares outstanding is going to be different for Coke and for SBUX. So off of my DES screen, shares outstanding 755.9, 755.9. My earnings estimates are also going to change. SBUX has different, wrong one, EEO, different growth or different revenues and margins. So again, sales for SBUX next year, 16,620. The year after, 18,383. Operating profit next year, 3085. The year after, 3627. Right? And I also have to update manually these data from the footnotes of the balance sheet. So I'll start with goodwill. So I can just copy the goodwill numbers all the way through. Copy. Come here to assumptions. Paste special values. I'll go to my pension, do the same thing. Pension obligations for SBUX. Looks like there's zeros. Copy. Copy a bunch of zeros all the way across. Now you notice over here, I pasted all 10 years in and it only looked for 6 historical years. So having the extra data over here doesn't really matter, but if I want to make my spreadsheet clean, I can clear the contents for data that I don't need. But they have 0 pensions, and then I look for any leases. And for the operating leases, 4576.6. I got my lease obligations. Okay. So next, what I need to do is I have to recognize that if I'm reusing a file, that I may have made changes, as you can see, to the growth rates in future years that are hard-coded in here. And I want to undo that, because if I'm reusing the model, I want to undo anything that was hard-coded. So starting in 2016, for my revenue growth rate, I'm going to equal my 2015 revenue growth rate, copy that, and carry that forward. And the same thing for cost of revenue. I'm going to start out with 2014 equals 2013. I'm going to copy that and carry that forward. And finally, for tax rate, I had an average tax rate for the last 6 years, and then I equal the previous year's tax rate. Notice for Starbucks that 2013 is an abnormality for their tax rate. Not going to pay 104% taxes. Probably had to pay some deferred taxes that were due, so it screwed up their tax rate. Anyways, what I really want is I want to get an average then, which is going to be for 5 years, to be more representative, and then equals the year after that, so I then have a more realistic tax rate. So the most important thing is that when I'm setting up my model, since I'm reusing a model that I've already put in some assumptions, changed some numbers in yellow to actual numbers, I have to kind of undo those changes. Otherwise, I could get some really crazy share prices, because basically my model will be a little bit redundant. So in this case, I've now set the model up to go. And finally, what I'm going to need to do is come in here under assumptions, and I got to match the forecasted margins to my model. So in this case, I got to reduce my cost of revenue by 3.74%. Since I've reset my revenue to be equal, minus 0.0374, and then an additional 1.17 minus 0.0117. And that gets me 7709. And this is the stage of the model which I was calling the baseline. So now I'm ready to do my as-is valuation. So if I go to Elms and log in, you will see the assignment. Which I think I have ready to go live today. It's called Homework 7. At 1:30, so I'm going to make this live as soon as this video is completed. But it basically says we need to perform an as-is valuation of Starbucks at $71.50 a share, which means we have to get our initial stock price between $70.50 and $72.50, and then we have to give a write-up of our assumptions for as-is. We also have to do a final valuation. So again, just like your homework for Coke, you're turning in 3 files, and then you're putting in the write-up of assumptions for both. So in this case, for Starbucks, go back to Excel. I got to get this number down to around, again, price-wise, between $70.50 and $72.50. So just as we did for Coke, I would recommend going to IBIS World, get the analyst reports off of Thomson 1, and using some of that data to help you create a forecast for Starbucks, which is much more realistic, particularly for years 3 through 10. Because remember, I've put in the next 2 years based on the earnings estimates already. So really it's about years 3 through 10 that get this down to that approximate $71 share price. And then from there, you have to do a final valuation and your assessment of Starbucks. So that is your homework assignment for next Monday. Again, I'm giving you class time on Wednesday to work on this homework assignment, which you can also work on in teams with a limited amount of teamwork, meaning you individually still have to put the data into your own files. You individually still have to get the data out of Bloomberg. You individually still have to upload and write up your own assignment, but you can help each other if you're struggling to get data out of Bloomberg or you're struggling to figure out where to get the external information, to help collaborate with each other to get the data. But I still want you to individually practice updating your models. As I mentioned last week, this is also a good opportunity to run a parallel process for your group projects. So this is exactly what you're going to have to do for Section 4 for your group projects. So you may want to do a dry run in parallel with your group projects to see what kind of data you get and to see if there are any challenges with the company that you selected and its data. But again, for SBUX, you're going to turn in 3 files a week from today. You're going to turn in the as-is Excel, you're going to turn in the final Excel, and you're going to turn in your write-up of the assumptions. So that is what the assignment is. And again, I am giving you Wednesday's class time to work on it. Now, I will actually be on campus on Wednesday, but I will not be available during class time. So again, you have time during class to work in the Bloomberg labs. And if you have any additional questions, you're always welcome to send me an email or ask the TAs. But again, you need to complete SBUX by Monday. But since I'm giving you class time on Wednesday, there will be no extensions to this assignment. Okay, that'll conclude our webinar describing what we need to cover for this week. And again, look forward to seeing everybody to cover and debrief both Coke and SBUX next Monday.